This podcast brought to you by Chips and Beer. Chips and Beer. It's the perfect snack for any get-together.
And sugar gummies, don't forget.
Right, yeah.
All right, let's do this. What is going on, everybody? It's been a while, but this is going to be a recurring problem, we'll call it. This is Rob, Let Him Laugh, Rob Parsons, and this is going to be the first, I guess, of, I haven't decided on a name yet, Let Him Laugh Talks or Let Him Laugh Jism or something. I don't know, but we'll figure it out. We're going to do it once in a while. And but tonight I got some people who were kind of all involved in the divorce and have been involved for the most part in things that I've done since and tried to prepare. So I'm going to hand it over to our, I guess, our handler for the night, our host, and we'll let Gary take it. So
I'll handle it.
Gary Stackhouse, and you can do introductions and stuff.
All right. Well, welcome. This is really cool, and thanks to Rob for bringing us all in. Why don't we just go around the table and just kind of introduce each other?
Yeah. And don't forget, we're at the camera this evening,
that's right.
so you can watch us on the camera too.
That's right. I'll start. Yeah. I'm Gary Stackhouse. Played Adam in The Divorce. Longtime broadcaster and general idiot.
Failure.
Yeah. Unemployed ex-broadcaster. Washed up.
Politician.
Yeah, washed up politician. Yeah, there we go.
Failed political run, failed radio career, failed musician. Yeah. He just muted us. You see that?
Yep, that's it. You're all done. Rob?
You're going to go this way? Rob Parsons, founder of Let 'Em Laugh, writer-director. We just did our second movie at Silverwave, which we're going to talk about. Already on to the next projects, you know what I mean? And I just want to keep doing a podcast to basically with the creative people that I come in contact with throughout the different projects. It's a nice medium for people to talk about, roadblocks and things like that, because we are in a region that you have to work twice as hard, as far as I'm concerned. Yeah. So that's kind of what I want to do this, and just it's an excuse to hang out with your friends and eat chips and drink beer. Take it away, sir.
This is John Landry. I did the animation for The Divorce.
What was that?
That was John not being allowed. John doesn't talk for a living.
I don't.
No.
That's John's issue.
Should I be louder?
Yeah, you got to bring your voice up, man. Be a man.
You got to speak.
It's so hard being
Speak.
a man. Oh, gosh.
You couldn't be a rapper.
No, I could. No. My name is John Landry. I did the animation and graphics for The Divorce, Let 'Em Laugh's last film.
Yep. So you did the opening credits.
Yep.
Animation, and you did 2 flashback sequences, and you did the end credits.
End credits too.
Yeah.
2 flashbacks, a flash forward, a couple of flashes sideways.
Yeah. And don't cut yourself short. You were continuity on The Divorce. You came in about halfway through, but you started doing continuity for us.
Yeah.
And we've worked together ever since.
Yep.
You know what I mean? From a crew perspective, you know what I mean? So.
I'm Sheldon Garland. I've been brought on board to kind of help build an industry here. I have a background in film. Graduated from Vancouver Film School. I've had an award-winning documentary that I did a couple years back. I've had a lot of professional acting credits. I played a greasy cop in Rob's movie. That's how we met. Yeah.
I think we met before that. I can't remember the circumstance, but I'm pretty sure we had met before that.
Well, most likely.
Oh, it was the audition for The Divorce, actually. That's
yeah.
The audition.
Yeah, that was an intimidating audition. There was about a dozen people in the room staring at you for that one. That was a fun one.
And just so you know, like everything Sheldon mentioned about, all the acting and school and award-winning document, it's all porn. Everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'll be the future prime minister.
Yeah. And you forgot you're a dirty Boston fan.
Boston all the way.
Yeah, he's got a Sox hoodie on, for those of you who aren't watching.
And a Bruins cap.
And a Bruins cap, yeah. It's all right, we won't. That's why he put...
It's already
you can keep muting him.
We put him on the other side of the table.
Boston strong.
Retired Battle MC, rapper extraordinaire, fact spelled P-H-A-K-T.
This is for my unsung heroes, Triple Gambinos, Malcolm X, any means, gun cock reload, black ball, carbon copy, new Jack Ninos, Zilla 2 real for you C3POs, flow robotic, stop following those you know don't got it, only goes to show they show no promise, known choke artists, far from the hardest, we're the guard dog honest, we trailblaze like cold climate with a comet, top charts, we ain't trying to climb it just to comment, life like Stan Lee, stuck 'em in the comics, fact with a P, stop fucking up the phonics. mics and still Mike Washington, 1-0 and Jay Thomas. We motivated like my M.O. was make dollars. My losing cuts, peanuts, Snoopy, Lucy, Linus. Allow me to remind y'all the reason y'all behind us.
We're going to talk about that today.
Last week.
I was going to ask you about that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm taller than the both of them.
Yeah. Prodigy's tiny dude. And that's not so. You know, your personal life short. You got a 2-year-old baby girl and another one on the way.
Yeah, daddy of 2 as of like any moment. So, and /4 stepdaddy. You know, I do what I. Man of many hats.
Do your daddy game.
Yeah,
Speaking of hats, by the way, you've got the best hat at the table.
Yeah, Wu-Tang. I don't think this one is any particular, just a Wu-Tang with a halo. I think it's like the A's, I think it is.
Yeah.
I have another one, it's like the Calgary Flames. I don't know. That's the other one I'll show you when I bring
Yeah.
that.
I bet her tomorrow, December 2nd. I can't wait.
Yeah, I was
man.
gonna say, plug that.
You have no idea, man. I drive Tracy nuts because I'm like a 10-year-old with new albums. I'm like December 2nd, new Wu-Tang album's coming out. Did you hear? December 2nd, the new Wu-Tang album's coming out. Gary, do you want to go with me and get the new Wu-Tang album?
Sure.
Like, I'm kind of that kid.
Is there any place you can buy them anymore? I thought you had to download them.
I'm still a
You
collector,
can
man.
pre-order the.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
I think you get bonus material if you pre-order the.
The deluxe edition on
yeah.
iTunes, yeah.
Something like that.
But I'm a collector, you know what I mean? Like, a little bit off topic, but I mean, I still like having the physicals. I'm the dude that, when I first started listening to hip hop, I'm the dude that would cut school in high school and go to the record stores on Tuesday. Mom knew exactly what I was
Every
doing.
Tuesday, yeah.
Right? Yeah. And I'm the dude that would open up my tape or my CD and read the liner notes. Like, who produced the track? Who did they shout out? And who was the gas? You know, I'm that kid, so.
Yeah.
That's how you found other artists to listen to, whoever was listed that you never knew.
You know, something that's actually how I found producers that I liked, because I would hear a track that I really liked. Like, I remember I was big into NWA and MC Ren and Eazy-E and stuff. And he did stuff with DJ Train, MC Ren did, and Bobcat. And I was like, I really like this Bobcat sound. And I found out he did stuff with LL, and I was like, you know what? Yeah, but Bobcat was a good producer because he could change the sound based on the where the rapper was from. So he could sound East Coast, he could sound West Coast, he could do whatever. But yeah, you're right. That's how I found certain producers, especially that I really wanted to check for because I liked their style. Read those liner notes, man. They're dope.
Yeah, it's always fun too. I just recently had an album that Johnny Depp was on. Had no idea, wasn't publicized, nothing.
Yeah.
And
Johnny Depp?
Yeah, Ryan Adams. Ryan Adams has a new CD. And
Are you
Johnny
saying
Depp-
Brian Adams or
No,
Ryan?
Ryan. Not
Yeah.
Brian, Ryan.
Who's that? I never heard of that kid.
He's in the alt country, I guess you would say.
You know
But
he's
a
coming out like,
singer-songwriter.
let's just call me Ryan Adams and confuse some people. Like, he's trying really hard to
That's
do that.
basically it.
His first couple thousand records were sold because people thought it was Brian Adams, you know what I mean?
Yeah, maybe. No Summer 69, but.
Yeah. Take it away, Gary.
Well,
This is gonna be an all over
you
the
know what?
place
We've had a really busy few weeks. First thing, the significant thing, Silverwave.
Yeah, that was
Let's
dope.
talk about Silverwave.
So we did a movie. Everyone at this table was involved in the divorce. Writer, director, animator, actor, musician, and I guess actor because he was in front of the camera. And, you know, actor, musician did some score for us.
Yeah.
So we went up to Silverwave this past year, 2 weeks ago now.
Yep.
We were given the closing gala feature film slot, which is dope because there's only 2 feature films really. And it was nerve-wracking. I mean, I can't lie. I had to leave Sunday because our showing was Sunday at 7. And I had to get away from everybody because I was going to be sick. Like, when we went out with my first film, I got sick because Billy Campbell showed up, the Rocketeer, like, you know, the guy that's been in 100 movies. And he showed up to see our movie, and I was like, I can't, I'm out. I can't do this, you know what I mean? So,
It was actually fun because I met up with you and Tracy.
at the mall.
Yeah, at the
Because
mall.
Tracy and I went for a walk, and she
Yeah.
just hold on to my arm, let me walk
Yep.
so I could be alone with my head. And,
Yep. But you were stressed. You were stressed, and of course, we didn't know. I mean, it's the very last night. It's a Sunday night, so a lot of people, you know, we're thinking people have gone home.
Yeah.
Traditionally,
And see, the big thing was Saturday night. They didn't announce, like,
Well, yeah,
they didn't announce anything that was going on Sunday. So
Yeah.
they did the awards, and then they did the.
yeah. If you were there and you didn't know any better,
If you know any better, you don't know that there's stuff going on
Yeah.
Sunday, and right up
You'd
till
swear it
Sunday
was over.
night.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, this is gonna hurt. You know, what I mean, this is gonna be bad.
well, and traditionally, not a huge crowd for that closing gala because people go home.
Yeah.
Right? If you're in the Miramichi or whatever, you know, you go home. If you're in,
That's where I was, in Miramichi.
Yeah.
The first movie.
Was it?
I'm asking you, is that the first movie was the Mirror Machine? That's where they showed it?
No, it was in Fredericton still.
Okay.
But see, all the filmmakers from all over New Brunswick show up, and they go to this region, but they want to get home before it's too late Sunday.
Right.
So they all leave in the afternoon, right? And the closing gala kind of hurts because of that, traditionally. And what happened for us is we had the biggest showing ever. for
Yeah, there
closing
there
gala.
was enough buzz around it. People were talking about it. It was all over.
It was
Facebook.
crazy,
The social
man.
media thing just exploded with that
Right.
for sure.
It was crazy. Like in Cat, I shouldn't name drop, but one of the people who run the festival kept coming up to me and grabbed my shoulders and shaking me. She's like, "This is incredible." And they told me afterwards that, like, we didn't have this many for our opening feature.
Yeah.
So that was really dope. And not one person walked out because it's a potty mouth movie. You know what I mean? Like, look, the reason I tell the stories I do is because I think people in the Maritimes, and everyone at this table can attest to it, people in the Maritimes have a very unique sensibility and a one-of-a-kind sense of humor. And with the divorce, I wanted to show a maritime kitchen party, and I wanted to show our sense of humor, the self-deprecating, but love and we'll do anything for anybody kind of attitude, right? And I think it worked because not one person left that film or that theater, not one. I thought we had a walkout, and then they ran back in. I was like, "Oh, they just went pee." Woo.
Yeah, back in there.
You know what I mean? So it was a really crazy.
Rob has
feeling.
never been so happy to see someone urinate.
Yeah, no, it was crazy because when we did the screenings here in town, we were trying to raise some money, and I wanted to know where I had to cut fat, right? Because the first cut was like 3 hours because I shoot big, and I tend to give actors a little bit of leeway. Go ahead, add a line or something. And then I said, okay, I got to get this way down, and I got it down to 155, and that was what we showed in St. John at the different screenings. And what we were doing was handing out questionnaires like, what didn't you like? What didn't you like? And we didn't get any negative comments. Like, it was crazy the comments we got. So what we had to do as a collective, as part of the executive team, was, okay, where does it feel slow to us? And that's where we start trimming more fat so I could cut another 15 minutes off the flick. Because we had to. It was just too long, right? But you guys have all seen it. The latest cut moves fast. Like, that movie moves fast. You're just sitting down and all of a sudden, like, it's over. That's a good thing. When a movie moves that fast, you don't realize that an hour's passed. That's a good thing because it means you're invested, right? So those screenings were a blessing for us to be able to do that and go up to Silver Wave with a great cut. Now, we still have to master the audio, and we still have to, there's one other thing that, closed captioning, we had to get closed captioning done. So once we get all that done, like, we have this finished movie that everyone's stuck off the Q&A. It was kind of dope, you know what I mean?
Well, of course, they're all filmmakers. Well, a lot of people are filmmakers who are interested in film at the film festival. So the first question you usually get is, all right, what's next?
I know.
Yeah.
It created a buzz, and everybody's following on Facebook and stuff, and they want to see what you're doing next, and then people are coming out of the woodwork to offer a hand.
Yeah, I don't know what happened with Calling. See, I didn't direct Calling. Jared Burt directed Calling. And I really wanted to direct The Divorce because making Calling, I fell in love with the process in a big, bad way.
So did anyone ask you what was next after that?
After Calling, yeah. Jared and I were on a panel back in 2011, and they said, what's next? And I wanted to do The Divorce. I had the script half done already when I was at Silver Wave with Calling. And Jared was at me. He's like, no, you need to do like a gangster story. And I was like, all right, I have a gangster story I want to tell, like a crime story. I have that in me. There's all kinds of stories I want to tell. And when I told them that, there was no reaction. But then I said, and then I have another idea about a story about some friends that one of their friends gets a divorce and they want to go from St. John to Fredericton, but they never make it. And the whole room lost it. And I was like, well, then that's the next flick, right? Not thinking that they were reacting to the idea. They were reacting because I said Fredericton. It was an idea that was tailor-made for that audience. So, of course, they're going to love it, right? It's a maritime movie, right? But that's what I went home and finished. And, we came back 2 years later with another flick, and a lot of people went. And our Facebook page, like, we have 1,300 likes on our Let 'Em Laugh page. That's pretty good, man. There's a lot of people in this region that have been, as a musician or as a photographer or a videographer, have been trying to get their page out there. And somehow we got 1,300 likes. That's people like Gary and Kyle with their built-in audience that we had. But they came over, and they're not leaving us. So it's kind of crazy. So yeah, people like right away asked, and this year they did again. And I didn't give too much away this year because I've got multiple projects on the go. So.
It's funny though. I think we've got 1,300 likes, and people haven't gone away because I think in some respects are living vicariously through you and through Let 'Em Laugh in terms of being able to do what you love and be creative creative and not have to go away to do it.
Mm.
You know?
Yeah, that's the big thing. I mean, that's what drew me to Rob specifically because he could tell the story better than I could, but basically he had a choice and he chose to follow his dream rather than, work a job that he didn't really want to work.
To
anyway.
be fair,
Yeah.
my hand was forced. I had spent all that time from calling up until the point I was let go at my job buying equipment. Every paycheck, I bought a new piece of equipment. My goal was to be self-sufficient. I didn't want to have to rely on anybody for camera, for sound, for anything. And that was my goal. Literally, the month they let me go, I bought my last piece of equipment. I bought my green screen, right? So I'm completely self-sufficient. And that was the reason why, is because if something happens with my day job, I want to be able to fall back on my dream, but it's an awful big gamble to just quit and go do this. My hand was forced. It's either us or this. I wouldn't choose, so they fabricated a reason to get rid of me, and they got rid of me. And it was the best thing that ever happened to me. I mean, it really was. So in one sense, I would love to say, Sheldon, yes, I took the gamble and I did it. My hand was forced. Again, best thing that ever happened to me. But my hand was forced. Much like you're going to be going through shortly.
Well, I was just going to say, I'm looking at you going, damn, he did what I want to do. And, I get a layoff slip coming out in a couple of months, and I'm, following suit. Gary.
I'm in the same position right now.
Mike and John are the only employed people here in the state.
Literally, I'm doing it right now. Like the whole, got the layoff. Let's put this time in, release some stuff, get some stuff written, and the stuff that we talked about before the rolling. But same thing. It's funny that this happened to come up.
Yes, this is like the maritime way, I guess.
It really is, Acre.
You lose your job and figure out how the hell am I
We're all
going to
living the dream, boys.
But
This is
you know
it.
what I love? And I don't know whether anybody picked this up, but normally people say, I want to follow my dream, but I've got my real job to fall back on. You said, in case something happens to my real job, I've got my dream to fall back on.
And that's what's happened.
And you know what?
And it's not easy. Don't get me wrong.
That's why I love you. That's why I
You
just.
said it was
That's
because of my
why
beard.
well, there's that too.
That's a different
That's
way.
not why I love you, but
No, but it's because you have a completely different perspective on things.
Honestly, Gary, my goal through this whole thing is to be a filmmaker from New Brunswick.
Yeah.
Because I think, not just New Brunswick, Atlantic Canada as a whole is being ignored. There's so much talent here. Our MCs are so talented. Our musicians are so... Like, if you go back as far as, like, Ashland McIsaac, right? He blew up because he was unique. You know what? Atlantic Canada is filled with unique. And it's just that,
Completely.
as far as Canada's
There's
concerned...
no money here.
But
Yeah.
Canada, as far as the rest of Canada is concerned, Canada stops at Quebec, right?
Yeah.
They forget about everything east of Quebec. And you know as well as I do that that's true, right? So
Nothing
the States,
missing.
it's the same thing. If the States are contacting their people in Toronto, being like, what kind of talent do you guys have up there? They're going to go with the people that have a following in Ontario, Toronto, British Columbia.
and the people that they do recognize from here are people who did go away.
Exactly.
They had to go away to
You know
become
what I mean?
famous to bring it back.
There's
so.
very few people that are
The Trailer Park
successful.
Boys are,
The Trailer Park Boys are one. Classified as one because, as far Mike, you might know, but as far as I know, he didn't actually leave Nova Scotia.
No,
he
he's
kept
still in the
grinding in
field
Nova
right now,
Scotia,
right.
Yeah.
right? So he did his grind, but it took him 7 albums before
10.
before he really blew up though off
I'm
that
pretty sure
one
it was
single,
10, I
right?
think.
Was it the
be
Maritimes
wrong,
that
but-
blew him up, or was it
Yeah,
the one?
well,
I would say that would be the beginning of
That was the beginning,
boom,
yeah.
I
And see,
think.
I knew Classified when I lived in England Drive years ago, and I was a kid. I was one of the first kids with the internet. My mom said, I want to get my son away from the streets because I was kind of starting towards a bad path. And she got me a
All
computer.
that NWA.
Yeah. Actually, it was probably Ghetto Boys in it. But anyway, she got me a computer, and I was looking up rap artists and, the early Wu-Tang pages on GeoCities with the flashing symbols and stuff. Anyway, I found Classified's page, and he had a track out called Hey Now. It was a really catchy track. He couldn't release it today because of samples and stuff, but it was a catchy track. So I was like, hey, man, I'm in New Brunswick. Where can I get this? And he was like, oh, just send me your address. And I did. And, dude, I literally sent me 2 vinyl copies of that. And I didn't have a record player, but I was like, this is amazing. And I still have them. They're at my mom's place.
See, that's the maritime way. What you're
But
talking
exactly,
about.
that's the
Yeah.
maritime thing.
Yeah.
Like, there's 2 aspects to why Classified did that. One, this guy took enough time to reach out and say, hey, I like that track. And two, it was, this is how I have to promote myself. I've got to run my own business, right? And I kind of want to flip it on to Mike for a minute because we got a guy who's a pure musician here. What is your take on that, Mike? Coming from like just a pure musician standpoint, what's the grind like compared to what we've had to go through for you? Because you went through the whole, I've been signed, I've done videos, and I don't know the backstory to everything, but like, how do you compare that?
Well, as far as like what I myself have done and had to do, like really, the recognition came from me. Well, coincidentally, me leaving New Brunswick, but going to Halifax to do the whole battle thing.
Yeah. Undefeated, were you not?
Up to a certain point, but fuck judges. But anyway, but you got your thing where you got to go out of town, you got to make your name, you have to get where everyone is, which at that point in time, like I said, it was like 2003.
There was no hip hop scene in New Brunswick.
No, well, I mean, there was a scene. There was more of a scene than there is now, to be honest. But
was it really? Okay.
There's really, when I say a scene, it's a scene within itself. Like no one from the outside knows. It's almost like we have our own little clubhouse, and
but
no
your
girls.
name doesn't leave those walls.
Right,
Thing.
exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, but outside of that, it is possible. It's always been possible. It's just the fact that no one looks where, everyone looks for the beaten path. Oh, that must be the way out. That must be where I have to go to get out of these woods. No, this might be a shorter way. I'm not sure if I want to gamble on that. I don't know if, it might cost money, it might waste money, it might be a waste of time. I'm just going to do this. So as far as everyone goes, I always say anyone from here who is on that grind, you have a little bit more grind in you, basically. You're more hungry because of the fact that you know how far you have to go before you get your first morsel of food or get your water or whatever. It's almost like, if you want to compare it to people who go out west, they know people from New Brunswick, people from the Maritimes, they were willing to work. They'll hire you on the spot. I'm from New Brunswick, I'm from the Maritimes, I need a job. Cool, come with us. Same thing. They know that we're workers and we're grinding, so that's kind of what the grind is for us. In other places that are more established, you don't have to put in so much, so it's more like, okay, I know this guy who could put me onto this, so I'm a rapper now, or I'm an actor now, or now I want to host this. So it's less effort where there's more success. Where we have, ourselves, we try, like you said, try to be self-sufficient, try to use what we have, and we are guaranteed to give it more push, because if we don't, there's a great chance no one's going to hear it, see it, know who you are. Might be a waste of time. Got to find another job, whatever the case may be. But now, because of the fact that we're starting to make a little treadway, it's almost like, okay, this might be, we're starting to see a little bit of the fruits of the labor. Like not quite, but we're almost there, basically, in my eyes.
And I'm seeing you and Monarch do that in a big bad way. Like, you guys released a group album. As far as I'm concerned, Monarch has the best solo hip hop album to ever come out of New Brunswick.
I probably have to agree.
Elementary, that's just, I love that album. Sean, Sean, what's his name? Sean One.
Yeah.
He's done some dope stuff.
You forgot the one.
Yeah, I really like Sean One as a producer, though. You know what I mean? Like, he's brilliant behind the boards. But as far as just, I own his albums, man. Like, I shot them out as often as I can. Monarch from start, and Fact hasn't released an album yet, but I can guarantee,
coming soon.
But I can guarantee you, though, when Fact releases an album, his sole intention is going to be, how can I one up my best friend?
Yep.
You know what I mean? Because that's what you do, right?
And he knows
I got to one up my boy. You know what I mean?
And that's what makes things better and better and better. You grow together.
And so, like, you guys are.
Why shouldn't it be that way? Tool sharpens tool, right? So, I mean, if we're not trying to outdo each other, we're not going to ever get that.
Well,
for lack of better wording, that attention that everyone else has. We're not going to get that spotlight that we need to get turned on us.
See, I had read, and you guys will all agree this, well, not just on a hip-hop level, but on a whole level. In 1992 to about, I would say 1991 to about 1995 was the golden era of hip-hop, because every album came out was just like, God damn, this is incredible. How did they do this again? M.A.D, Doggy Style, Chronic. If you go 91, you're talking N-Word for Life by NWA.
I'll probably say all the way to 97.
Would you? Okay. But I heard an interview, or I read an interview in one of the hip-hop magazines, and I'm not going to say who because I don't want to get the name wrong, but it was an established artist, and basically he said, all we did was what we did in that time, because they didn't have to worry about sampling as much and all that, was they would go listen to, like, Illmatic and Gangstar. Gangstar released Hard to Earn. Wu-Tang 36 Chambers. I'm like, how can we do better than that? And then they would release their album, and it was amazing because they said, we like this point, we like this, we like this, we like this, and they took it and they did it, and all of a sudden, someone releases the next classic album, like Pete Rock released I&I, a group called I&I, and it was just an amazing album, and that's what happened. And to build on Mike's point about that is, Mike's going to try and outdo Monarch. We have to do that as a whole in movies and TV and everything. If we're going to make a name for ourselves, like Calling was good, Divorce is better, wait till see what the fuck we're doing next. You know what I mean? And we have to keep that mentality. If we ever get the mentality of, I'm just going to release material to release material, it's time to hang it up.
That's
Whether it's a microphone
it's
or
like
it's a
you're not
camera.
caring about quality.
Yeah.
That's what it is that you're attaining when you.
You need to challenge
outdo
yourself, and you also need to try and outdo your friend who inspires you. I've got a filmmaker friend, Sheldon being one of them. He released his documentary. If I ever release a documentary, my goal was to have a better documentary than the one that won him awards. And that doesn't come.
I cheer you on the whole way, and then
that's the thing. That doesn't come from.
I did not have to come.
But that's the thing. It doesn't come from a point of ego or like, like fuck Sheldon. It doesn't come from that. It comes from, if I'm going to do a documentary to really get out there, I have to look at the one that won awards locally, and I have to do one better.
Well, and that's just it. You learn from each other, right?
Oh, yeah.
You take each other's art and you say, well, hey, I loved what he did here. How could I do that? And, put a spin on it, make it my own type of thing.
Yeah.
And that's the growing kind of relationship that you have amongst each other. We're in a place, unfortunately, within Canada that doesn't have
the world.
We don't have any money.
Yeah.
Other provinces have, in Canada especially, have film credits, and they have different, like, for the arts.
Everyone at this table now has a film credit on IMDb. I'm just saying.
We don't have any support in that. So the greatest thing that Rob said that he did when he found out, his job was in jeopardy, was he made himself self-sufficient. He took away all obstacles.
To be fair, I did that with Colin 4 years, 5 years before I ever got fired. It was, it was just my goal.
You completely eliminated excuses.
Yeah.
You have no excuses now. You have
all
equipment. Now it's all about the
I
talent.
know the woman on the couch. I drove her nuts at times. But there's no one, and she's nodding yes over there. But if you don't have the support of the people around you, your loved ones, your kids, your family, but also the creative, like-minded people, you're setting yourself up for failure. So what I did on top of that was I removed all the no, we can't people from my life. If I ever asked someone for something, and my answer from them was, why? Or I can't do that. We can't do that. Okay, cool. See you later, man. And I would never ask them again. You have to have those people around you. If Fact is going to release a new album, and he goes to Sean One and was like, I got this idea for a track. I want to have record scratches. I want to have some opera, and then I'm going to cut in, and I'm just going to wreck that opera bitch. Like, I'm just going to destroy her verse. And if Sean One was like, that's a fucking stupid idea.
Patent pending.
He has to walk away from that. Yeah. Because that producer doesn't get it. And Sean One, I'm not meaning that.
Or I might even walk away like maybe that is a stupid idea.
No. I'm just saying as an example. And Sean One, I don't mean that as a diss. You're just the producer in New Brunswick that comes to mind, and I'm sure you'd be all over it. But if you listen to everyone who says no, you can't, you never have a finished product. If I had to listen to everyone that said no, you can't, calling would have never happened, and I'd still be at that call center. Yeah, that's literally the truth.
This is an interesting conversation to have this week.
And we're way off topic.
For me.
But anyway.
But it's an interesting conversation for me because I was a musician.
You are a musician.
Well, no, but I was full-time professional musician out of high school. In my last year of high school, I was playing in a band.
Did they actually do high school back then? Weren't you guys all the grades in one room?
Yeah, in a cave.
And they took turns ringing the bell at recess?
Sorry, I had to get it in there.
The handheld bell?
No, this week, I went to see a concert in Moncton, Sarah McLachlan. Back in this is interesting because I've never ever told this story publicly. I know.
Yeah,
I know.
I wouldn't tell that either.
No, but I went under duress.
I'm joking, man.
No. I went under duress for a reason, and I'll tell you why. And I've only ever told my kids know this story. My girlfriend knows it. Ex-wife knows the story, and my dad knows the story because he was a key
So
part.
you have told the story, okay.
But-
I don't feel it's special.
But nobody else knows this.
Yeah.
Back in 1983, when I was in grade 12, playing in a band outdoors, I was fronting a band. Guy came up to me after this outdoor gig that we did and said, "Look, I'm an agent, manager, looking for somebody to, do something with it. I really like the way you kind of come across
Cut of your
as a
ear
front
type
man.
thing, yeah.
Would you be interested in coming to Halifax and, kind of
Once again,
doing some
relocate
stuff?"
to do it.
Yeah, but
that's always the
but
first
I mean,
thing.
but you know what? Back then there was no hope in hell of
Yeah.
doing anything in St. Giles.
Yeah,
It was a
yeah.
little bit different. There wasn't even any.
Of course, I'll go to Halifax to do
Well,
that.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. I was in grade 12. I was living with my dad. I went and talked to my dad, who's a very, I grew up very practical guy, and he said, "No, you got to finish school, and I want you to go to university for at least a year before you do anything."
Mhm.
So I had to go back to this guy. I mean, I suppose I could have gone, but I chose to do what my dad wanted. That guy, I went back, said, "No, I can't." He said, "Well, that's fine." He went back to Halifax. He, a couple of years later, found a young girl in high school who was playing in a band. Got her a gig opening for a band who was playing in Halifax, and one of the members of the band was the founder of Network Records in Vancouver.
Mhm.
That girl was Sarah McLachlan. So by me not rejecting the naysayers,
Mhm.
it was, and I'm not saying that I would have ended up being big like Sarah McLachlan, but this was a guy who clearly had the wherewithal to be able to get some opportunities for people.
I just can't see Gary Stackhouse name up in lights, but anyway.
Building
I'm joking.
mystery
I would have changed my name to Sarah McLachlan.
So can I ask you a question based on that? And I'm going to ask you the same question. And actually, I'm going to go around the table because everyone here has done something to chase the dream. Because you relocated to go to school, you had to, right?
Yeah.
So I'm going to start with Gary, and then
It's
we're
a
going to go around the
scary thing.
table, right?
I'm going to say something very maritime. Who took the beer?
It's out on the porch.
Oh, it's out on the
Yeah.
porch.
Of course,
you-
it's cold
Gary-
enough out there.
Gary and
colder than
everyone, I
fridge.
want you to think about this because this is going to be a question you're all going to have to answer. As you sit here now,
Mhm.
Gary Stackhouse, the senior, and I don't mean senior citizen, but I mean older than your younger self.
Yeah.
Would you go back and be like, "Don't do that"? Would you change your advice to yourself? And you're all going to get this question because Fact had to relocate, get a record deal out of it, but not everything worked out. Sheldon had to go to Vancouver, went to film school. This guy went to Miramichi. You know what I mean?
I would absolutely follow my dreams. I heard Jim Carrey say something. Jim Carrey said he was talking to a
I think I know what you're talking about.
valedictory
Yeah.
speech. and
Yeah,
he
that was
said-
amazing.
Yeah, he said, "You know what? My dad could have been a really good comedian, but he chose to have a safe job. And, when I was 12 years old, he lost that safe job. It's just as easy to fail at something that's safe as it is to fail at your dream. So why not go for your dream?"
Mhm.
And it's weird that I'm hearing all this stuff right now because
Okay, so with that said,
Yeah.
what would you go back and tell your high school self who just had the conversation with that man and your dad said no?
go for it.
You tell him
To hell with your dad.
ignore your dad?
Yeah, to hell with your dad. Tell him, "Dad, I love you, but I'm off. I'm gone."
And so would I. So good for you.
Yep.
You know what I mean? What about you, Fac? If you could go back and talk to the kid who moved to Halifax, would you say anything or would you say, you know what, do this, this, and this different?
Well, there's two things that kind of come to mind that are really, actually, yeah, scratch that. There's really one thing. No, actually, there's always multiple things.
Yeah,
All right,
yeah.
so one of them.
Mind of many levels.
Yeah, it kind of makes me think like before. I did get approached by class on one instance where it was I was done with the label. It was almost like the cloud had been lifted. I can work with people now, and he had reached out but I had a game plan with my boy that is actually managing me now, Slim, and
And
I
is this
had-
post your video release?
which
Because
one?
you got a little bit of
Oh,
noise on your video.
That
your
was
animated video.
Yeah, that was after. That
Okay.
was after. And I think I kind of turned it down just because, not for any particular reason having to do with him or anything. I actually thought it was a cool opportunity that I kind of now wish I had taken upon myself to say, let's see how far he gets you. But that's the exact reason why I declined it, because I wanted to see how far I can get myself. So in my eyes, I didn't know how he could help me if I didn't know how I could help myself first. But now that I know that, things didn't work out with me and my boy at the time, we now have reconciled and everything. It was just a stupid little misunderstanding we had. But kind of made me say, man, I wonder what I could have did with class. Like, I wonder how far I could have got, or what could I have accomplished had I actually been on the road with him or did anything to that magnitude, because now he's touring the country and he has KO, who's also another artist who is successfully marketing himself, and he's all over the place. And
But Mike, I've heard you speak very highly of class, so it's not like there's any bad blood.
oh,
there.
not at all. I'm glad he reached out. I just, I hope he knows that it wasn't anything personal. Like, I just don't want to do that. It was purely, I just wanted to know what I could do for myself first, and hope that maybe if that had failed, that would still be on the table, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Now, like I said, it's funny because now I am back to square one. I'm back with the same guy that I was making plans with, making plans, but it's like we're grown about it now. Now it's like I can take that advice.
Well, how many years of experience do you have to build on?
That was 11 years ago.
You see what I'm saying?
Well, that would have been about 10 years ago, 9 years ago, something like that.
It's almost like you take a grown man approach to it now.
Yeah, so now it's like I know what not that particular opportunity, but now I know where to capitalize and where not to capitalize.
Mm-hmm.
I know when I'm jumping the gun and when it's safe to say, okay, maybe I can afford to not do this, even if it's a gamble. I know where it's smart to say yes and no, and when to basically throw my cards in. So
as a daddy with 2 kids who still rhymes because he loves the art form.
and my kids will rhyme as well.
Yeah.
So,
But as a father of 2 who still rhymes, you would go back and say, look, you did the right thing, but here's some things you need to do just a little bit different.
yeah, because I mean, even without doing the things that we set out to do, I never was put in a situation where I lost. Like, I actually didn't learn something valuable from. Like, I did the whole label thing. That was a train wreck, but I learned from all of those. I've been to lots of places. I met lots of people. I learned from every one of those situations where
You were on a
other
Killer
people
Priest track,
wasn't
dude.
fit. And I had to remind myself of those things sometimes.
Yeah.
I forget, but I have.
So for those of you not familiar with hip-hop, Killer Priest is part of the extended Wu-Tang family. That's a pretty big thing. 'cause
Wow,
this
that's
is one of the
pretty cool,
deepest lyricists of that family. Like, Killer Priest can rhyme, you know what I mean? So,
Yeah,
like, you
I
need to
take
take
it like
that
it's
back.
the things I've done kind of speak for themselves. So I could have not done those things.
Yeah.
So I mean, and it's still there are people who still might check that one song and say, "Oh, who's that fat guy? Let me check him out or see what he's doing lately." So it still works out in my favor.
And just before we finish off here, I just want to ask, if you didn't go to Halifax, would any of that happen? Did that have to happen?
I know it wouldn't have happened because the opportunity was not. It was only there that opportunity existed. Like all of that came from
The
a
relocation.
booming movement that started there. But I can say that if this was a different time, maybe. But at that time, no, it wouldn't have happened.
If you
See,
go ahead.
you didn't make the decision not to work with class out of fear, though.
No, I would have
It
jumped
was-
head
it-
first
yeah,
had
it
it
was-
not been
yeah.
that other.
That's the difference with me. It was really fear. It was
Of your father?
It was fear of the unknown. It was fear of the future that was put into me by my dad.
The blue collar.
So
yeah.
I mean, if I had to, and I tell my kids this constantly, don't ever let fear make your decisions for you.
Well, it's scary to be alone in a dream. I mean, you know what you want to do, but everybody around you is telling, you can't do that.
Yep.
How are you going to do that? How are you going to pay your bills? How are you going to make money? Money is such an important thing to most people
Yep.
that an artist...
That's the thing that motivates me least. 'Cause it
Me
bugs
too.
I can't stand that stuff. You
Oh.
go deal with Elaine. I'm just going to write.
Money can convince
Although,
me
I
to do
mean,
some stuff.
Well, no,
well,
it does,
you do
but-
hit a point where you have kids. Like, I mean, you have
Yeah.
kids and I have kids, right?
Yeah.
So there is a point where you go, man, I got to figure out how to get my kids a new pair of sneakers
We
because,
gotta
you
get
know...
paid first, and then I can go.
But here's the thing, Zach.
for sure.
When you look at, and sorry, Mike is he's a friend of mine, but I call him Fact. Sorry, but anyway, Mike, when you look at a verse and you stand back and you're like, these 16 bars are some of the dopest bars I've ever put to pen or put to paper. It's not money you're thinking about. You wrote those 16
Right.
bars because you fucking love this art form,
Yeah.
and I can't wait to get in front of the microphone and blow this crowd
Some of the best
away.
stuff I did was like on stuff that was never really released for monetary.
The Divorce Man, you did those bars you spit on for us was dope. I don't know if that was something you wrote specifically for us.
That was on a mixtape, and that actually proves my point. That was not like a release. We never sold them.
Mhm.
And it's not something I got any kind of money from. It was just like, here, that's on the street now. People
But it
know
was
who
a
I am.
verse.
But that was something that at that time, like I have a couple people that's like, hey, would you spit that verse?
Yeah.
You know, or won't you do this? And honestly, at that time, that was one of my favorite ones. So it had nothing to do with money. It was all like,
You can ask Gary because when you were spitting your verse, he looked at me, and I was like,
yeah.
because I love like Sheldon and John. Sheldon, you may not know this, but I'm a huge hip hopper. Like since I was 8 years
It's pretty
old.
obvious.
Like no, huge, right? So when I hear an MC spit some bars that give me goosebumps, you know that they've just said something either emotionally or technically,
Right. Yeah.
where you're like, how the fuck did he pull off a multi with what he just said?
But that's got to be worth something. Like how you're saying, how we said if we're not trying to outdo each other, like that has to be worth something. Like
Yeah.
how good it is that you do what you do.
Yeah,
how
yeah.
good can you do it? How well are you at?
And you know what?
Like
You know
how
what's really
old
sad
you do
about that whole thing? What you're saying, Mike, and Gary's saying, and Sheldon's saying, because I've seen, and you, because you animated something for me. It's amazing. The thing that frustrates me most about being creative in whatever medium it is, the best don't succeed.
No,
There's this huge
No.
thing
Yeah.
of luck that is part of that,
definitely.
and the right set of eyes that just see at the right moment. You know what I mean? It's so frustrating.
You know what else? You know what? The thing that pisses me off more than anything is the people who are more naive about the process
Yeah.
tend to succeed because they don't think about all the obstacles. You know, if you know what the process is like to make it as a musician, to get a movie, actually.
That's why the idol thing drives me nuts. I mean,
Yep.
we're in a position, all of us here at the table, where we create something from nothing.
Yep.
And now the
Because
world
we
is-
love it.
because it's inside us, and we have
Yep.
to get it out somehow, right?
Yep.
But with the idol kind of mentality now is, oh, you're pretty? Okay, well here, do this. Dress this
We'll
way.
teach you how to get
Say
your
that.
good voice
We'll
to
teach
be
you how
what
to
it needs to
sing.
be.
We'll film a video and
Yeah.
we'll put you on a poster, and then they're successful. You know.
That's why the only person I was ever happy that won Idol was Taylor Hicks, because he had been doing it for 20 years and just couldn't break out of that circle. He didn't need coaching. He didn't need anything. He just needed exposure. But everyone else, well, we're going to teach you how to control your voice. We're going to teach you how to do a show.
Oh, completely.
You know
it's
what I
all
mean?
fabricated art, which
Yeah,
is
yeah.
so frustrating for people that are trying to.
And, when you look
No.
at someone like Fact and Gary, performer, I bet you if you looked at a show from Fact when he first went to Halifax, and you when you were in grade 12, compared to the show that they put on now, that's 11, 12 years of experience going, I know how to rock a crowd. I know how to take control of this
I would
crowd.
agree. Thank you for saying 11, 12 years.
Yeah, well, but whatever it is. And that was part of the reason I cast Gary and Kyle in The Divorce. Like, the four main guys, I have Adriano Silva and Nelson Hum, who had only ever acted for me in Illogic, but I believed in them, and I thought we could get them where I needed them to be. But I said, I can't have four people who don't have performance history. Gary killed it at the table read. He basically, and Tracy's over there, she'll tell you, we came home on the drive home, I said, Gary just won that role. I have to change part of the script to make him older than Adriano because he owned that role. And he was cast instantly. I was struggling with Kyle's character, Pete. I didn't know who to cast because this guy has to be the type of character. Some people have said he's kind of like a Jay and Jan Silent Bob, and a little bit. But I think Kyle's character has a little more heart. Really cares about people, but he does just say shit without thinking. You know what I'm saying? So it's a fine line for an actor to walk. So when Kyle, I was out for a walk one night, and I had the idea for Kyle. I was like, holy shit, Kyle could do this. And I called him, and I didn't even have to finish my sentence. He was like, I'm in, done. And he came to the table read. It was just Gary, Adriano, and Nelson, Tracy, and I. It was all that was here. We were just saying, forget the extra speaking roles.
Yeah.
Just go. And Gary nudged me, and he was like, yeah, because he got it. Yeah. And the reason I did it for Gary and Adriano was twofold. One, built-in audiences. Everyone in the southern New Brunswick knows who Gary Stackhouse is. People in Ontario know who Gary Stackhouse is. Built-in audience. He's going to be able to promote the divorce, and all these people that he has 3,000 people on Facebook are going to see the shit. Right?
Basically, he was using me.
Yeah, well, yeah.
You have to, though.
When
You
you're
have to.
starting out, you have to.
You have to,
The
right?
most important thing is to get your art
Absolutely.
seen and get your art heard and get your art
Right?
shown, you know?
You do. And then for Kyle, it was the same thing. One of his video has 49, it's probably at 50,000 views right now, the Get Looney video, right? Like, that is dope. That's a lot of views. But he also has that energy. But they're so used to being on a stage and controlling the crowd to make them enjoy what they're doing. I didn't have to work with them as hard and for their performance. They just looked at the lines and said, okay, do you mind if I say this? Yeah, okay, or no, don't do that, or okay, yeah, go ahead. And they got it. Whereas with Nelson and Adriano, and I don't mean this as a slight at all, but because they're not stage performers and they hadn't had any actor experience, I could let those two guys go and do their thing, and I could work with these two guys and say, this is what you need to do. Or, hey, Gary, can you go help Adriano? I need his energy to be here, and I need his mind to be on this. Hey, Kyle, I need Nelson to be really sarcastic here. Can you help him? And it all comes from being on that stage. And that's why I think you see so many rap artists, musicians, people who are used to being on a stage transition to acting because they can control the element. They have to. If you want to be any good as a musician, you can't get on the stage and flub your way through because you'll get booed off in a fucking heartbeat.
Well, that's why I heard some interviews lately on Howard Stern, actually.
And you still have to answer your question, but we'll come back to it.
And yeah, no problem. But they were talking about rock and roll. They say rock and roll's dead. It's kind of what's, what the popular mainstream kind of viewer and listeners saying. And they were asking AC/DC, and they said, well, it's because nobody tours anymore. Like most bands, most people that came up, even hip-hop artists, you go through the grind. You play the clubs, you play the weddings, you play the high school dances.
Even if you're not doing albums, you're touring.
Yeah, you're flexing and
You have
strengthening your
albums,
muscle.
but you just open for M.A.D, like as a prime example. You know what I mean? So,
But you've been strengthening your muscle for a long time, right? And I mean, nowadays, like we were talking about the American Idol thing, you're not out there.
No, it's true.
It's instant celebrity.
It's there's no pay your dues anymore.
no,
And that's why a lot of them are failing.
Yeah, that's one.
That's what I felt I've done the last 5 years is pay my dues by just doing it. And if I have to make another full length, the same way I've done the first two, that's what I'll do. Because I just want to tell stories.
But you're building, you're strengthening your muscle. I mean, take a look at the divorce compared to the calling, and now all the stuff that you got.
Well, the stuff we
coming
did
up in
last
the
weekend
future,
is
right?
completely ridiculous.
That's what I
compared to
mean.
that, you know what I mean? So,
You're getting more experienced people coming along saying, "Hey, this guy's for real. He's the real deal." I mean, he's doing stuff with nothing.
I don't
He
think
has
it's
his
that
own
I'm the
money,
real
he has his
deal.
own
I think
gear.
it's that we're doing it. I don't want anyone
No,
to
you
be.
are the real deal. Otherwise, we wouldn't have used a professional studio the other day.
I don't
Somebody
like this.
offered up a professional studio.
Yeah. But I
know,
think
because
that's
they believe and
everybody.
they see
That's
the
our complete
passion.
package. That's not me, man. I try my best.
But
to
you're
be-
surrounding yourself
Yes, and that's it.
with the people to make those
My
things
whole
happen,
thing
right?
is I want to be the guy who's known for saying thank you to everybody and being positive. I never want to be the guy who, when fact leaves, is like,
It's all me. I did it.
I hate that shit.
Oh,
man.
yeah,
And
yeah,
that's
for
why,
sure.
like, one of my dearest friends in the film industry, film business here in New Brunswick is Brittany. And we had this debate on our last podcast. You will never see a film by Robert Parsons at the start of my film. And the reason is, it's not an ego thing. Like, if Steven Spielberg does that, you know what? The man's a genius. He's earned the right to do that. Oliver Stone. A, I haven't earned the right to do that. But B, it wouldn't be a film without the actors and what they did, and the crew, and the people that did craft services, and the people that are running all the money behind the scenes. I can't call it a Rob Parsons film. I can call it a Let 'Em Laugh film because as soon as you're on board with one of my films, you're part of the Let 'Em Laugh family. So I can do that. But that's why you'll never see a Rob Parsons film.
I mean, that's honorable, and I totally agree. But in other respects, we're in an area where we have no publicity, so whether you like it or not, you have to get your name out there, and you have to get known, and you have to keep that ball rolling.
Yeah.
So people will pay attention, money will fall into place, and things will escalate. I mean, we're at the
I just live off Tracy.
You know, we're just talking about bands and stuff for a second ago.
Cliff off edge. All right.
Yeah, all right.
We were just talking about bands a second ago, and I mean, most bands start in the garage
Yep.
before they hit, you know, that first birthday party, and then some club owner, and then.
Yep.
We're in the garage right now. We're in a province where we have no money. You were smart enough to get your own gear. Everybody's volunteering, and we're doing some amazing
Right
stuff.
last weekend, everyone was
It's crazy.
volunteering. You know what I mean? I'm just lucky enough to have people that say, "Yeah, we can do that." And that's what motivates me, man. If I have someone that's like, yeah. If I call John and be like, John, can you do continuity for this weekend? Because John's really good at that. And he was like, I don't know if I want it. I wouldn't ask him again. I'd find someone else. But he's like, yeah, I'm on board. What is it? And I tell him, and he's like, oh, I can't wait. That reaction energizes me. Like, oh shit, it's on. You know what I mean? Like,
Well-
we're getting fired up.
Well, let's just talk really quickly about that because what happened.
And
What
you need to
happened
speak
this
up because
past
you're real cute, but you need to speak up.
what happened this past weekend was came out of a conversation between you and Sheldon
Yep.
the previous Sunday.
So I had written a
Yeah,
pilot,
less than a week.
and I don't want to give details away about the pilot.
No.
But I had written a TV pilot that I absolutely loved. See, Tracy had challenged me after I wrote The Divorce, because I would come home with the idea and be like, oh, lady's going to drip all over. Like, from where? I'm like, her vagina, she's going to drip on the bar. And she's like, that is disgusting. What the fuck is wrong with you? You know what I mean? Like, that was her reaction. So her and Mom both at the same time said, look, the script is funny, but it's not my thing. They both said, write something with no swearing. So two things came out of that. My Brother Baxter, which is the next full-length film, it's not a comedy, it's a drama. Sheldon's read it. I think he's the only one at the table that's read it because we're going to do. Oh, you've read it too. Yeah, that's right. And did you like it?
I did.
But it's completely different, right? Yeah. You know what I mean? Like it's completely different.
Yeah,
And when we did
you're
the-
going to cry more than you're going to laugh now.
when we
for
did
sure.
the first table read, everybody cried, even a 13-year-old. You know what I mean? So it's like, okay, I know I can do drama because there's people in my life that have been telling me, stick with comedy, you're really good at comedy. And I'm like, you know what? Our biggest reactions in Calling and The Divorce are our dramatic moments. Like in Calling, when Don has the conversation with Rick about how he first came to grips with being gay, you can hear a fucking pin drop in the theater every single time. And people all of a sudden hear, you know, like, and that works. The same thing in The Divorce. There's a couple moments between you and Adriano,
Yep.
and then a couple of that I don't want to get into. But those are the moments that people remember. So it's like, you know what, fuck you. I can write drama because those are the moments people remember. So when I sat down and took Mom and Tracy's challenge to do something with no potty, I said, all right, what can I do? One was My Brother Baxter, which I cannot wait to shoot. I am so, you have no idea. And the other was this other TV show idea. And I sent it to a few people. I sent it to Tracy, and this is like last year that I had finished that. And Trace loved it right from the get-go. Big fan of it. And I think I sent it to you.
Yep.
And from the day one, Gary's like, I absolutely adore that. I want to be a part of this. How can I do it? And then once I worked with Sheldon, there was two things I really liked about Sheldon. One, he went outside of his...
One was his mustache.
Yeah, you know,
I got a pretty good porn mustache.
Sheldon went outside of maybe certain walls that were in place to help us. And I was really blown away by that. And then we got talking about film, and as soon as we start talking about filmmaking, he lit up. It's almost like he got another foot taller. Because his whole body was like, oh, you want to talk about some shit? I'll talk. You know what I mean? And I love that. Like, that's why I can talk to Fact or Naps about hip-hop, because if I say, remember that first Scarface album? It's a passion, right? And I love that. So that's what happened. And I sent, after we finished Divorce, I said, Sheldon, I wrote something I'd really like you to read. And I sent this pilot to him. And it was the same thing. He's like, whatever the fuck you do with this, I want to be involved. And I was like, all right. And I kind of sat on it because we got so busy with the divorce and with post-production. And
Couldn't
all
get it
that.
out of my head. That night that I read it in bed laying beside my wife, and at the end I just looked at her and I said, I think this is going to be something. This is, this isn't a fluke.
And you're not the first one to
this
say
is
that to
something.
me. I've heard that twice now with Baxter and with this. And I never heard that from people with the divorce. They're just like, this is really funny. This will be fun. But I never heard, like, this will be something or this is going to be, you know.
Oh, I was awake half of the
So
night,
it was nice to hear
picturing
that.
being on set and picturing, what's
Yeah,
coming
yeah,
next and ideas, and my head was just exploding with.
And I love that,
holy-
right? Because now I can say, Sheldon, go write an episode. Here's the topic, go write an episode. You know what I mean? And so this 2 weekends ago at Silver Wave, Sheldon came over, and I'm kind of a huggy dude. So I was hugging everybody, and she come over, get a big hug, like congratulations.
Don't say congratulations like that with the gesture.
Yeah, good thing I can't say this as a podcast.
Yeah. That's how we roll every time, Joe.
Yeah.
That was really good. So anyway, Sheldon said, look, I can't get that script out of my mind. I said, all right. He said, I really want to do an idea of a teaser. And I just have an idea with him and his closest person. And I'm not going to, I really don't want to give anything away right now.
Yeah, just a
And,
couple of main
and
characters.
that was all he said. And I was like, all right, I really like that. And I came home from Silver Wave on Sunday night, about 3 a.m. we got home. I took Monday off, completely disconnected, went offline, didn't do anything. Gary, you were there all weekend.
Yeah.
You had to disconnect. It was
Yeah.
such a crazy, and you have to separate all the nonsense that
refocus.
goes with it, right? And then Tuesday, I said, okay, I couldn't get what you said out of my head, so I started writing. And I was like, hey, are you around? And you're like, yeah. And I said, I got something for you. And I sent it to you. And Sheldon was like, holy fuck, you're fast. I was like, that's what Tracy says.
I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe that you had, we went from an idea over a beer, like 24 hours ago type of thing. And it was I was reading, it was like, wow.
Yep.
Yeah. It was amazing,
And my whole
Yeah,
goal with
'cause
that was to
you
mislead the
mentioned it
audience.
to me that
Yeah.
night as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
My whole goal with that was to mislead the audience until the very end. That's all I wanted to do was like,
Oh, completely.
how can we make people think one thing is going on and just pull the rug right from underneath
Completely.
that? And after seeing, that's what we shot this weekend. We shot the teaser at.
Can I just say I didn't realize we had cockfeet here?
But we were at Twin Prop Studios this weekend and we shot that. And I'm going to show you guys the rough cut later because I still need to get the actual green screen footage and you guys on bikes, but the cold's not really agreeing with us.
Well, we were talking earlier about how amazing the province is now. Everybody's jumping on board. I mean, we planned on doing this. It was
Outside,
an
we're gonna do
outside
practical,
thing, and we got snow, the first snow of the year.
Yep.
So, given the circumstances, we couldn't do what we wanted to do
And Gary
outdoors.
kept saying, like, I'm worried about being on the motorbikes, but I'll do it. And I had called Elaine, and I was like, look, we can't do this. And
Oh
I
yeah,
said-
we had a major problem that
I
said
said,
we
do
can't
you
do it.
think if I reached out, because I had a conversation with one of the guys, I'm just going to say his name, Sorab, co-owner of Twin Prop Studios in Quispam Sis. I said, if we reached out, do you think they would let us in? She's like, you formulate an email, send it to me, I'll fix all your typos, and we'll send it off. And we got a call that night, like, yeah.
Oh
do
yeah,
it. And she said,
unbelievable.
the only thing is clean up.
You would
That-
never get that in a big city. Big city, the
Oh.
first big city, you would have had to have a check to go with that
How much
email.
money you paying?
Yeah,
It was
it
ridiculous.
was unbelievable
And
that they offered it up.
We didn't pay anything. So I sent you guys all a note. I said, wear double clothes because I'm not turning the heat on. I will not drive their bill up. If they're giving us this big place for free, wear double clothes because it's going to be cold. I am not turning the heat on. And God love Armand, your dad, my DP, and Matt, they took it a step further and said, how can we light what we need without having to use their big studio lights for that big-ass hockey rink is what it is.
Yeah.
Turned into this.
Yeah, hockey rink. with
And
a
they
green
did.
screen
They
all
found
around.
a way to go into the
Unbelievable.
circuit breaker and turn off the lights and get the power we needed for our lights and our gear, and that was it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that was the smallest way that we could show our gratitude by saying, we're not going to cost. This isn't going to cost you a fortune. For
Full circle, that's that New Brunswick. That
it is, isn't it? You know what I mean? It's crazy.
And
Like,
the progress within it is crazy within New Brunswick. I mean, 5 years ago we didn't have that.
Yeah.
We didn't
No.
have that. You know what I mean? And now all of a sudden we have like professional studios and we have guys like yourself who are going out and doing things. Like,
But do
it's
you know
unbelievable.
what it is, Gary? And I don't mean to interrupt you, but like when I first started, Let 'em Laugh is literally called Let 'em Laugh because I told those closest to me what I wanted to do, and I was laughed at. They were fucking laughing, right? And they were like, "You're stupid. You're from New Brunswick." One of the people actually said, "You're from New Brunswick. You can't do that." I was like, and I literally said, "You're right. I can't." And I sat on the script for calling for a year. Now, Guillaume and Jason Butts, two of my crew who have been with me for everything, were the only two that said, I'm on board for whatever you need, but like I can't, all we can do is help. We can't do anything else. We don't have cameras, we don't have this, but you need us to run wire, we'll run wire. Right? But I sat on it, and then I met Julius Malco, and Julius said, dude, let's just do it ourselves. Let's just get a fucking handy cam, and let's do it. And I was like, you know what? You're right. Yeah, let's do it. And he said, you got to name the company. I said, I do. And I did this whole thing, and I sent it to him, and he was like, dude, that is genius. And Let 'em Laugh is essentially, you go ahead and laugh. Here's our logo, Let 'em Laugh. And if you remember, our little guy is getting laughed at by three big guys. Our rebuttal's the movie.
Oh, for sure.
So go ahead and fucking say you can't do it. Now watch this.
But one of the best pieces of advice that I got at film school was, film school is it's amazing. I mean, I couldn't advise it enough if you're interested in that kind of thing because of the people that you met, and there's ways to learn everything. But one of the things that they said was, look, film school is great. You're learning. You're around people that are all like-minded. Once school's done, you're on your own again.
I know it's scary. That's one of the reasons I love Silverwave, because you're surrounded by people who are just oozing passion.
Yeah, you're
You
with
know?
your dream, but they said, don't sit around and wait for the phone to ring. Pick it up and make a call.
Yeah.
You got to do something every day on your own. Nobody's going to be there to say, hey.
I'm going to call this
gotta do
Sheldon
this.
guy because I want to see what he's up to. No one's going to do it.
Yeah,
I will
totally,
because
totally.
I'm a fan. But
Well, I mean, we call each other now, right?
yeah.
I mean, when's the last day that you haven't made a phone call, answered an email, edited something, filmed something? When's the last day that you haven't done something?
Well, do you know, since Silverwave, I've had musicians, actors, I've had union crew people message me and just be like, whatever you need for the next thing, I want to be a part of that. So I replied to each one of them and be like, I can't thank you enough. Like, that's amazing. And I just file it. Like, I will reach out to these people.
Everybody here wants an industry. We have
And then we can do
we
it.
have
so
no
bad.
money, but we have the willpower.
I've got a
and we
movie
know
for
where
this
we're
guy. I've got a movie for this guy,
it's-
Halford, and I can't wait to pitch to him.
It's
forgot
the
all about that.
enthusiasm. That's what, and I keep saying this because you keep saying, you guys and your yes you can attitude. It's your attitude that's so infectious. It's your enthusiasm. Just as a bit of an illustration of that, you sent out the script and said, here's the teaser. I want to do this weekend. An hour later, I hopped on my motorcycle and went out scouting locations because
That's crazy how fast I came
It
together.
was
today.
unbelievable
I sent you the
how
script
fast
on
it came together.
Tuesday, and by Friday night we were here rehearsing with our crew.
Unbelievable. I was at work for some of these nights, and I go to work. I work 12-hour shifts, shift work.
Yeah.
So I go to work, and my Facebook would be clear. At lunchtime, 6 hours into my shift, I turn my iPod on, and there'd be like 35 new messages. And it had basically
Do you know what's more crazy about what you're saying?
figured everything out.
How crazy is that Facebook now is the primary message communication
unbelievable.
protocol? You know what I mean? In fact, do you find the same thing in music?
Yeah, but I still tell people to I hate Facebook now because
I know. I send you a message
they got
like
the,
6 hours later. and
You know,
you're
the
blocked.
updates where they tell you the terms and conditions have changed. Now we need access to everything you do in life and your firstborn child. So
Send
now
us
it's
your
like
dick photos.
I don't
Yeah.
do the upgrades anymore. So when I see a message, I can only see like the first 3.5 sentences of it, and I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, just text me because I'm not gonna read that.
Yeah.
So that, I was on it with you because I go on through my browser. So
Well,
I
you
try
know,
to
I'm
find
not going to
ways
send you
around it,
some
but-
nonsense, though. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah. So I also try to just I am still with the calling. Like I'm still call me if it's easier than to text me a story because I know a lot of people don't actually use their phones for phones, but I'm still.
The problem is every time I call you, we end up talking for an hour, and we go through a whole game.
Oh, you have no
of
idea,
topics.
like-
it's insane. You know
I
what I
mentioned
mean?
stuff before. Like, let me see him right now. on my
Remember
phone.
Scarface's
His
first
dad's-
album? Remember
My
when
phone
Dad's
was there
was-
right now. He would kill my phone.
Yeah.
Like every time without fail, it could be charged up. We will talk until it's dead or he has to go.
Wow, that's
Every
crazy.
time.
Sheldon, I want you to answer the question. How old are you?
Is that
No,
relevant?
I'm dead serious. How old are you?
I believe
No, I'm
it's
38 years old.
Okay, so as the 38-year-old Sheldon, if you could go back and tell the day one student at film school anything, would you go back and tell him to change anything? Would you?
Oh no, the Vancouver years. I was in Vancouver for 8 years, best years.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously I love now where I am in life. I have kids and I have a wife,
Mhm. And you're in your home province.
what they've done to me is unbelievable. But no, like to be immersed in that industry, and I mean, I was volunteering. One of the things I tell kids, I used to do acting seminars and stuff in a few different places, at summer camps and stuff, and I always tell them, surround yourself and volunteer. The things that you want to do are there, and they need people. So, I mean, when I was in film school, I took the acting course, but I took that knowing that there's a directing course, and when they teach the directors, they bring in actors so the directors can learn.
Mm-hmm.
I volunteered to be the actor, and so I was learning the directing side of it. And then the writers need actors to read their scripts, so I volunteer for that. So, I mean, when you're there, you're getting all the different facets of the industry, and at that time, it was $1 billion industry in Vancouver.
Yeah.
I mean,
It still is, really.
I was well. It took a dive after 9/11. Schwarzenegger became governor. The borders closed down. There was a whole
Yeah.
Vancouver basically their industry was Hollywood runaways because the dollar was cheaper and there was tax cutting. And that kind of went away after 9/11. There was a pride to bring things back to the U.S. and Schwarzenegger became governor, and a lot of the production stayed because of that. And there was union strikes, and there was just a big snowball effect of things that happened. But one thing that it did do is it taught a lot of people that, there was a lot of trained people in Vancouver that went, geez, we don't know what to do. Well, let's just make our own stuff. So now the industry has kind of turned around and, benefited from it. But I had successes in the acting arena.
So literally you're saying you wouldn't tell yourself to do anything different?
Well,
don't sleep with that one prostitute on that one night. You get burned for a long time.
I thought the Adam's apple was a fluke. But no, I mean, it's kind of hard to say looking in hindsight. I hate to look back. I'm more of a person who likes to look forward, because part of me thinks that, I wouldn't have moved. I wouldn't have moved back home. But then that doesn't really make sense, because I wouldn't have met my wife. I wouldn't have my kids. I wouldn't be sitting here with you guys.
Like,
I know.
What is good in my life that would not be there anymore had I done anything?
I mean, as a trade-off. But I like what Gary was talking about earlier, but he had that opportunity and, out of fear and out of kind of peer pressure kind of thing, right?
When you look at Gary's life, that's a real fork.
Oh,
that's a legitimate fork in his life, right?
I think
definitely.
I think I got forked. Does anybody mind if I have the last cockfoot?
No, you
Not the first time Gary's asked that question.
Last piece of that cock is all
yours. The
yours.
word at the end of that.
Let's get John's take on this.
Thanks,
and
man.
then
I appreciate that.
What we'll do is we'll take a break because we're an hour, and I know some people got to go. Or if you want to stay, we can stay, because I could talk all night like this.
There was just one thing.
Go ahead.
There was one moment that did it for me. I went through the same thing. I said, I'm going to film school. My dad said, no, you can't go to film school. He said, you have to get a trade. So I went to community college, and I got an electronic engineering technology trade. I paid for it by myself. I got out. I got a job. I saved every nickel I could, and I went to film school in Vancouver. My old man thought I was nuts. He said, why would you give up a career job? I said, this is what I wanted to do from the beginning. I listened to you. I got
my
backup plan. Now I'm going to do my thing.
Which is probably the proper way to do shit. Okay, I got my fallback, but now I'm going to go.
Maybe if I could tell myself something different, I wouldn't have taken those couple of years and did that. I would have just went right to Vancouver.
Wow. Really?
Oh, definitely.
You don't use that trade anyway, do you?
Definitely. No. That was
That's something I take back too. Going to school for that was
that was advice from my dad.
Well, do you want to know something?
My dad, the moment that got it for me was I was in Vancouver. I was at a film school. 30 people went to acting class. About half of that graduated. A year later, there was 4 of us that had agents. And I was one of the lucky ones to get the first big break. I got a recurring role in a TV show, in a Fox series. And my old man happened to get transferred out west with the company he worked, so we were actually sharing a house together. And I had a pay stub for my first professional acting gig. And, I opened it and it was just kind of like, you have that moment to yourself like, holy shit, this is what most of my life I've been dreaming about. And it was kind of hit me in the face, and I got paid for it.
Was it a good amount where you're like, holy shit?
It was unbelievable.
Like, I literally just got paid
and my
this.
dad looked at
you were like, I got paid this amount to pretend.
Yeah. And my dad looked at it, and he's like, geez, that's a pretty good pay. What's that for, a couple weeks? I said, no, Dad, that was one day. He looked at me and said, one day?
Why the fuck didn't you go to film school?
It was unbelievable.
Well,
unbelievable. You know what, I made more in one day than he made in the month, which was unbelievable.
Wow.
He changed his mind after that.
That's the same kind of feeling that you get, and you understand this too, Mike. I've seen myself on Much Music. And you have too.
That must be
surreal. It's like an out-of-body experience.
Heard myself on the radio. I heard
like instantly, like I made
bands.
it.
Yeah,
I'm there.
It's absolutely. You're sitting there and it comes on, or you're driving. It's that classic movie moment in any movie where there's a band, or any biographical musical movie where you're driving along in the car and your song comes on the radio. It's just there's no
And
feeling.
you know what's funny? I watched.
I've always dreamt of it, but when it hits you in the face, it's surreal. It's like an out-of-body experience. Like,
Yeah.
And
wow.
everyone feels that way. I just watched the documentary again. I've watched it 100 times. I made when Trace and I, when I was first courting Trace, I was like, "You have to watch this documentary, and if you don't connect with it, it's not going to work out." And it was rhyme and reason, and literally she watched
You're gonna
it.
say Spinal
She
Tap.
literally watched it, and she was like, "This is dope." Or she's, "I get this. I get why you." And hip hop, it's these people are using their voices and instruments and stuff. But Craig Mack is on there, and he had a huge hit around the same time that Notorious Big did. He was on the same label, and he had Flavor in the Year. And he said, "Craziest moment of my life ever, hands down today." And he said, "I've been all over the world, but hands down, craziest moment when I heard Flavor in the Year come on Chuck Chillott's radio show. As soon as I heard my song on Chuck Chillott, I was like, Mom, what is it? Is that me? Is that my song?" And she said, "Yeah, it's you." And he was like, he literally relayed on the radio. He was like, "That was the moment where I was like, holy crap, it paid off. Oh, there I am. Everyone's listening to me. You know what I mean?" So yeah, I mean, and it doesn't matter who you are. Everyone has that moment. So we got to give John his moment here. What about you, John? Because how long have you been out of school now?
Out of school? Oh, geez, it was 2010. So
You're still a baby, really. I mean, and I don't mean that as a slight. I just mean you're young enough that you're still kind of paying off student loans, essentially.
almost done though.
Yeah.
But I'm smart about it.
So you've been working in doing what you love to do, but for a commercial thing, and you've done some fun stuff with film or with your own animation. But would you go back and tell yourself anything different before you went to school?
Yeah. I'm honestly,
at the
I'm not
beginning of
sure.
this.
Yeah. I'm not 10, 15 years down
You're
the
not
road
as
now.
tenured as
So,
these cats, you know what I mean?
but I didn't move out of the province either, like a lot of you guys did.
Yeah, you used to
kinda chase the
Miramichi,
dream,
yeah.
right? So I actually went and backtracked. Like instead of St. John, I went to Miramichi, which is like a smaller, more sleepy town than St. John is, which is.
But they had
kinda
the
weird.
program you
But-
needed.
Well, yeah, they had the animation program, but it was sort of strange because the only place really that you were going to get a job in animation in New Brunswick was Miramichi. They had Fat Cat Studios at the time. And so as far as schooling goes, I didn't have to leave. Now, Fat Cat Studio went under. I think they have Luguru now, and it's peaking up, but it's still a small group. And there's a few businesses here and there. Moncton, I know, has Goji Games. PEI was booming there for a while. There was Telos.
They got bought out by EA.
EA. They got bought out by EA. Byte Studios got bought out by EA.
Yeah. They scooped up everyone for mobile games and stuff, yeah.
Yep. But I mean, like, there's not much. Halifax, I think, is the closest.
And you know what's
place
crazy? When John and I first started him, because his dad is my director of photography, you guys would have all met him when you were filming your segments. Old dude with the gray hair. That was there.
That guy.
Whatever hair he had.
That guy, yeah.
But he did a fantastic job. Anyway, he said, "Look, my son's an animator," because I told him I want to have my opening credits animated. He's my son's an animator. I was like, "Holy shit, I got to meet him." So John came over here one night, and it was Armin and I and John and Trace and I sat together. And this dude didn't say a word all night. He just kept sketching all night.
Kind of like today.
Yeah. Oh, no. But he was
I hope
sketching
you're
all
not
night.
sketching
Well,
this.
minus the sketch, yeah.
And at the end of
our
our conversation, because whenever I'd ask him something, he would look up and answer me and go back down his book. He had a whole 3 pages of different things I was talking about throughout the night, sketched out. And I was like, "This is pretty dope." So we started getting real tight, really, really close to the point where now he comes over and the kids are like, "John's here!" Ooh," you know what I mean? One of those things. And what blew me away was once we got talking about it, because I would talk about film passionately, you would talk about acting, how Mike and I can talk about hip hop and the artists that we really admire, and how you can talk about Beatles and whatnot. He would talk that way about animation. That's not a bad thing. There, I know they're your
talk
favorite
about,
band.
Lincoln.
The Crusades.
But what John would do is he would bring up, he's like, "You got to check this unreleased Hanna-Barbera animation." And he would show me this cartoon from 1950, whatever, something, that was never released. And he's like, "Look at the lines." And I'm like, "I don't see the lines you're talking about, but I love your passion. I am so into what you're into." And then he showed me this other animation that was absolutely beautiful. And he was like, "That's what I aspire to be." And I was like, "That's it. From now on, John will be a part of what we do." Because he spoke eloquently about his passion and wanted to show me, "Look at it."
Oh, you can see it in the material. That really elevated, that elevated your indie.
Everyone
to
gets
another
shocked.
aspect.
When they see the opening
Unbelievable.
credits and the flashbacks, everyone is like, oh, you know.
You don't see that stuff in independent movies.
No, and I love that. The only note I gave to John was, I want the guys to be picked up by Gary, and I want where the animation ends, I want it to seamlessly blend into the video. That's the only note I gave him. And everything else he worked in there. There's a moment like where Kyle, just before he puts the hat on Nelson's character, his hair is up like double horns. You know, like he did this little sweet thing for me where he put, when Kyle's character is calling Adriano, it says calling. That's literally the logo from my first movie. He did that as a little, like, here, Rob, this is for you. So when I saw the review, I was like, oh my God, dude. Like, and he was like, I didn't think you'd catch it. And I caught it instantly. I was like, holy fuck, look at that. And I love that stuff. You know what I mean? People who put their personal touch and think outside of the box. You know what I mean? Everyone at this table can say that. So,
But so you're talking about like how you have a vision for something and then it turns into something like what you wanted, but with more.
Mm-hmm.
Has anything been kind of underwhelming? Like, has anything ever been like, that's not quite the way I wanted it?
Yeah, there's been moments. There's a lot of moments in college.
Pretty much every performance I ever did.
Well, that could have been a little different. Like, you know,
There are things in both Calling and The Divorce.
Okay, I'm used to it. I've been married twice.
But that's part of being an artist, though. I mean,
Well-
it's hard to walk away from the editing suite and say, okay, it's done.
It's part of being an artist, but it's also part of being an artist who doesn't have the money to go and do what they want to do.
Well, that's you're talking technical stuff, though. Like,
That's right. But I mean,
Audio and video.
performances, no, because, well, in Calling, yes, there were some performances I didn't like, but I wasn't the director. It was up to someone else, and all he cared about was getting high. And that's cool. That's his prerogative, and if that's what he wants to do, I understand that. But halfway through that movie, I fell in love with directing, and I was like, dude, I want to, no, you know what I mean? But that's cool. You know what I mean? I love that guy. He set me on my path, because all I wanted to be was a writer. Movies to me were something that were unattainable. I grew up poor, and my mom gets really mad when I say that because she thinks it like shames her or something. But she was a single mom with me, a little shithead, and I was a little fucking asshole back then. And my sister had cerebral palsy. Mom was a stay-at-home mom taking care of her daughter. She never ever got to have a life because she had to take care of her daughter. So my escape were the movies. Mom would have a VCR, and we had a neighbor upstairs who would copy all the movies from rental stores, and he would loan them out to the neighbors. Here you go, and he would literally write down who had what, right? Like it was Blockbuster in an
he
apartment.
would dub it. Like,
Yeah. It was crazy. It was crazy,
two
right?
VCRs.
It was insane. So movies were always my escape, and that's where I fell in love with Walter Matthau, favorite actor of all time, because he's an actor who can make me laugh just with the simplest face gesture.
just
You know what I mean? Yeah. But I also fell in love with some of my favorite directors. So movies for me were never something that was attainable because that was a rich man thing. You had to come from money to be able to afford to do that kind of thing. And it was when I was making Calling, I was like, you know what? All you need is a camera and people who can relay the message. You know what I mean? And it really clicked with me. They're like, I can't do this. Why have I been so afraid of this? So, you know, yeah, there's been things that didn't happen the way I wanted. And, you know, there's been arguments on set, as Gary will attest to, because I wanted a certain way. And I generally give actors a lot of leeway. But
Sometimes he'd like to see us in the middle of the freeway.
yeah. But, you know,
that's
I had
his
a
passion,
realization.
though.
I had a realization in post that when the people that I argue with, it's because they're passionate about what they're doing. I can't get mad at someone who just is like, I think this idea is great. I have to listen to it. You know what I mean? And that's been one of my biggest lessons as a director. Like, I listen to everybody now. Gary will tell you that. I listen to everybody's idea, and it may be good, it may be not, but I'll listen to it, and I may try it. You know, let's try a take like that, and let's see.
Well, your job as a director is to filter.
Yeah.
You know, take all that stuff in, but then at the end of the day, you have to sift through it and come up with what you think is the best.
Because there was a lot of times on
Approach.
Divorce where suggestions would come up, and I was like, you know what? We're crossing into slapstick at this point, right? So we can be a comedy with a lot of heart, because we do. The third act, we have a lot of heart in it. Or we can become The Naked Gun. And there's nothing wrong with The Naked Gun, but I don't want to do slapstick. You know what I mean? I'd rather do something with a lot of comedy and then wrap it up with a nice little kind of emotional thing. So I think this would be a good time to break. Can you guys do another segment?
I'm in.
Can you get Sheldon? Or?
I'm down for whatever, unless a baby comes. So.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to make a call.
But can you? Or?
Yeah, well, probably. Yeah.
Okay, all right, John.
Let
Yeah,
me know.
no, I'm good.
All right, let's take a quick break, and then we'll come back. And I'm going to let you guys kind of lead the discussion a little bit, and so will Gary. We'll let you guys lead it because I'm really interested about. I have some things written down here. One of them, this guy from Up Deep. I have to hear about that. So, but anyway, we'll be right back, and yeah, we're gonna have some fun. So, thanks for listening.